I'm going to share all of my information. I'm laying my cards out.
Before we get into this episode, I would like for you all to like, subscribe, and leave any comments. I greatly appreciate all those who are part of this fellowship and part of this team and part of this journey with me and many other guests where we discuss their journey towards their purpose, self-reflecting, so that we all can realize and have self-reflection within ourselves, that we may be able to be inspired and ultimately to remind ourselves we are not alone in our path to greatness.
I'm going on that little bar. This is what the business first looked like when we purchased it back in July. We wanted to change it up a little bit, so we gave it a fresh coat of paint on the inside and outside. As you can imagine, there were tons of little jobs. We got new TVs, cleaned out closets, tons of random packages, just a bunch of odd jobs to get ready for inspections. At the same time, we're filing for licenses and insurance. We're hiring staff, setting up emails, Instagrams, all that stuff. And while I did that, the boys went to work laying turf. Things didn't stop there. Check out our new sign and our mural that my cousin Lily painted. That's her right there. We had some late night jam sessions that were disguised as cleaning and reorganizing. Things were finally starting to come together, which meant it was time for inspections. This was the inspection I was most worried about, but I think we passed. And suddenly, we were open. Just in time for the new school year. Welcome to my journey as a bar and venue owner in a college town.
Oh man, we've got my guest, my former boss. My former boss who had to fire me. Let me put that on so she had to fire me. Oh man, I had a hiccup, but that's one of the
Couple hiccups.
couple hiccups, man. You showed me a lot of grace, but that's part of the price you pay and the kind of responsibilities as being a boss chick. How are we doing? We've got Miss Lauren Greenlee. How are we doing, Miss Lauren Greenlee?
I'm doing great today. Very excited to be here.
Hey, that's what's up. That's what's up. So we're at Journey to Purpose. Once again, we're here identifying, building self-reflection and mental awareness from the experiences of your life, right? To understand who you were, to who you are, to who you want to become. Hopefully inspiring others that this path to greatness is we're not alone, right? And so I think a lot of women especially will benefit from hearing what your story is and what kind of the road that you had to take to kind of get into this point. So I think what you will have is a great opportunity, right? To tell everybody what's going on in your life and things of that nature. So man, what's going on? What's going on now in your life? How you been, man? You not around the city no more.
Nope. Life's been pretty good. Right now, I'm traveling back and forth between South Carolina and Arizona.
Okay.
My family's out there, so I'm just out there helping take care of everything and started substitute teaching out there.
Oh, what grade?
K through 12.
K through 12?
Oh,
Man.
It's amazing.
You got to watch out now. So you better watch out. These little young rascals think they're grown. You got to be that boss. Hey.
Oh, I walk in and I scare them immediately.
Yeah.
If I'm up here talking, you're not. Start off strong.
You've always commanded the arena. So I definitely give you kudos for that. You walk in the room like Lauren's here. So you've definitely had that presence on you. So how do you like that with school teaching?
I love it. It's extremely fulfilling and rewarding. And it's seriously one of my favorite ways to spend a day. I've always loved being in a classroom, and it's really great that I can help lead it and kind of guide students along the way.
So with substitute teaching, is there like anything particular like that you teach, or do you just kind of fill in with the lesson plans?
Yeah, I literally just, I go online and I just wait and see until there's something that interests me. Okay. And I go in, sometimes there's sub-plans, sometimes they're not. Okay. And I just kind of go off of whatever that is. Yeah. I had been through and done all of it already. So it's usually pretty easy to step in and figure out what you need to do.
That's what's up. What's up, man. So we're getting right into it. So you being a business owner and a graduate in many different ways, kind of, was this path of everything kind of what you wanted to do and what it looks like so far, or?
It is, and it also isn't. It's gone a few different ways. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And by the time I got into high school and stuff, I really took an interest in like the sport and entertainment business.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to be involved in that. And
Yeah.
I had a list of things that I wanted to accomplish. And I did accomplish them. They just were in a different way than I had pictured in my mind, I would say.
God works in mysterious ways.
Yes.
He knows the plans that he has for us, that it says in Jeremiah 29:17. But most importantly, we as adults look back and realize life doesn't really necessarily go the way that we pictured it. But in a beauty of the process of life, I've learned that it always kind of works itself out if you continue to do the work that you had set for yourself. So you being into sports and going in that route, like that had to come from an upbringing. I see that you have 4 brothers.
Yeah, I have 1 biological brother and 3 older stepbrothers.
Well, they're brothers.
Yes, they are.
Stepbrothers. That's huge, right? So no sisters?
No sisters.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh man, no sister. That's why you're tough.
That's why I'm bossy.
Man, God almighty, man. How does that? We'll have to get into that, man, with everything going on about femininity and masculine. Like, whew, you're around a lot of masculinity. So I love to hear more about how your mom had an influence. So let's go kind of like talk about your childhood and what was that like growing up in Colorado and the experience of being in a different city like Colorado, you know, all the opportunities that they have. And then, you know, growing up with, you know, 4 brothers or however that was. So
Yeah. So grew up in Colorado, was born and raised, lived in the same house from the time that I was like 4 until about 10 or 11 years old. My parents got divorced. House foreclosed, everything was going on. And,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
2000, it was 2008, so everything was happening. Mom moved to Connecticut. I was really lucky because I had a really big family around me. All
Okay.
of my cousins lived within a mile radius of me. We all went to the same school. I was super blessed and privileged with the fact that my parents always prioritized us staying in the same school, no matter how many times we moved after that. After like 10 or 11 years old, I moved every single year until I think my senior year of college was the first time I really stopped moving around. But
So tell me real quick, so your family, your mom and dad divorced. Do you kind of remember what age that was?
yeah, it was it was 6th grade.
Wow.
It was going right into middle school. Yeah, and
How did that impact you? Because at 6th grade, you can kind of remember that far back.
definitely.
And what I've learned is a lot of us as people like experience a lot of childhood trauma. And we use that word trauma a lot, but some of it's we can't control. And unfortunately, our parents are not aware of that. So how did that affect you then and even now in your life?
Yeah. I would say it was absolutely a blessing in disguise. I remember feeling like it was going to be the end of the world that my parents were splitting, and it ended up being the greatest blessing. First, you know, 4 years or so was pretty rough, but they have a really great relationship now. And I would say for the first couple years, I was with my dad most of the time. And my dad is still to this day one of my best friends in the whole world. And so he was always like, he was Mr. Mom in a sense, like packed every single lunch, never missed a game, always made sure that we were at school on time. You know, dinner was always ready. Like he took care of all of that. He was always there, and he was working full time. He had his own tile setting company, so that's what he was doing. And that definitely helped. My mom being away definitely had an impact because
You're with the guy all day.
Yeah, I'm with a guy all day, you know, like zip ties are your hair tie. You're not getting the rubber bands, you're zip tying your hair. I remember my mom, so she was, my mom's absolutely beautiful. She's a beauty queen. She's a
I've seen a picture of
amazing
her. She is beautiful.
businesswoman as well. She, when that whole thing happened, she got moved to Connecticut and was basically mentored, and they ended up paying for her to go get her bachelor's in business. And she just became an absolutely wonderful businesswoman. And she had always taught me, like, if you have the right confidence, you can wear a trash bag into a room and turn heads, and it doesn't matter. And my dad always raised me with the who gives a fuck what they're thinking when you walk in. If you want to wear a trash bag, like, who cares? Let them look, let them not look, let them say whatever they want. It doesn't matter. So I kind of had this balance of,
they kind of go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. It was like two different versions of confidence that I was gifted, and it really helped me out through life. So
I'm not discrediting your mom, but it seems that you having that years with your dad helped kind of give you that mental fortitude to push you in a position that has gotten you to where you at now.
Yeah. So I agree.
So at what point did your mom come back? Because if she's going to be a boss, what point did she come back, and when did that kind of help influence?
So she traveled back and forth a lot. She'd come home. Sometimes it just depended, but she'd be back on the weekends. So for the first year, I would stay at my dad's house whenever she was in town. We lived with my cousins, and but she came back, I think it was my 8th grade year. She got a job back in Parker, Colorado, and she moved back full time. We got an apartment. And then she was back, and we split time equally. I was a week with my mom and a week with my dad, and they're very different people in a sense. My mom is, I would say, much more like type A. My dad's very go with the flow. So I had this really interesting balance of being with my mom and her being very like on a strict schedule, and I guess more of like a stricter parent, and my dad who was much more like trusted to get it done, let us kind of do what we wanted whenever he had to go to work or whatever he was doing. And so I kind of had a nice like balance of being able to choose to do the work and being not forced but expected. And
So you was talking and going into the touching on the parent concept, because we're living in a society where there's a lot of broken homes, unfortunately, a lot of single parenting going on. Hearing your parents co-parent later is very helpful. I think a form of respect was shown to each other, especially with the kids. And to see how your parents were able to come back to figure things out says a lot about their maturity and their respect towards their family, despite what their individual choices was. So I just want to say kudos to your parents, to the Greenlees, and just shout them out for that, on both parties. Sometimes we have to go our separate ways to figure out how we can work back together. And it may not be the perfect picture, but, we'll move forward as far as, your mom finding someone else and things of that nature. But you stated that living with your dad, he was kind of like type A and your mom was kind of more strict. Usually it's the other way around, but I've learned that a lot more women have to become more strict, which is very important, especially with you being a female and so many different wolves out here. If you're not gained correctly, then you could be a sheep to the slaughter. So having that perspective is really helpful for you to get both dynamics. A lot of kids don't get that. So that's kind of even a blessing that they don't have their fathers in their house to kind of groom them, or their mothers around to groom them, especially with a lot of us living like having kids is like an objectification, in the sense of, as long as they're good, here, I can live my best life. But then I've had kids tell me being a parent is more than just paying bills, having a roof over your head, having clothes on your back, and food. And that sucks, because I think that's where we miss the quality of parenthood, because of the balance that they can bring amongst each other on different levels. So even your dad being a hard worker, business owner, full-time, sports acclimated, involved in you, and having to do the nurturing with the zip ties, that embarrassment that he had to send you to. If she was there or a woman was there, she would have that concept to be able to groom, and he could still pour into you in that way. And you've got both dynamics. So you were still blessed to still kind of get that later on in your life. So that's a big kudos out to your family on that, yo.
I am extremely blessed with, it's not just my mom and my dad who helped create the person that I am today. My mom has a wonderful husband named Chris, and he has been one of the greatest blessings in my life. And so it's like just tack on another amazing father figure on top of my already amazing dad. My mom is totally amazing. My grandparents were always involved in my life. My mom's mom was always there on Wednesdays and Sundays. We always did a big family dinner. My grandparents on my dad's side were actively always, like, they stayed in our basement during the summer, took me and my younger brother on road trips all over the country, seeing like history, museums, that sort of thing. And
Key moments that you remember distinctly on those road trips?
oh man, I mean,
sing-alongs?
I would well, we had like assigned seats in the car. We didn't switch spots whatsoever. We always had like workbooks. Education was always very much a focus of like making sure that you're learning what's going on, figuring out how interstates run, and understanding that we got atlases for Christmases and birthdays to be able to follow along where we're going. But I had just a lot of amazing parents. Like when people say it takes a village, like it was a million hands that were upon me that were helping lift me up and mold me into who I am.
Wow.
And I got really lucky with that because not everybody gets one parent, not everyone gets two, but I had like six that were always there, and I always felt loved and taken care of.
Even with that, having all those voices, right? At some point as a young woman, I'm sure it got overwhelming. Like it had to have played a part, like different voices, different perspectives, different insights. So it's hard to navigate all that information growing up. So later I know that that's probably has helped you filter all that information. At some point as you get older, you're able to filter which points of all that has been helpful to each journey or each checkpoint in your journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
most
dope.
definitely.
That's dope.
So,
oh man. So growing up in Denver, you had your parents, you had that going on. Did you have your stepbrothers? When did they come apart? And what did having a brothers, being full of men and brothers, like, what was that like growing up as well?
So they came around, I think my mom started dating him when I was in the 7th or 8th grade is when she started dating Chris. I think we moved into his house like 8th grade or freshman year of high school. And that's when, started living with my stepbrothers. 2 of them lived there full time. One of them was living with his mom in California. But a lot of it was, it was really fun. It was great because I was the princess. I was the only girl. It was, that was great. Obviously, definitely took some beatings. Or like locked myself in the Jack and Jill bathroom, like holding the blocks in so they couldn't get me for whatever it was. Lots of pranks. They used to they'd take a Home Depot bucket and put a bunch of those like little TNT dynamite things, and I'd be sleeping in my room, and I'd wake up to fireworks in my bedroom, like them just lighting them off, or
pranks.
Yeah, pranks all the time. They took my doors. They've done whatever. But
how'd you get them back? What'd you do?
Huh? I didn't. I was like, I told him, I was like, if you don't want me to have doors, then sure, go for it. Like
you ain't gonna use the boss car and go tell.
My parents were in on it. They were in on it. They were like, yeah, go mess with her. Like, so yeah, no, I just pretty much took it and was just like, all right, whatever. I did one time. My younger brother, when he first got his license and he drove to school for the first time, I took his spare keys, and after he had parked, I had like first period off or something. So I went and moved his car to another parking lot so that he couldn't find it. So I got my fun in too, but
that's why he failed those grades.
Yeah.
He couldn't get to class on time because he's looking for his car.
Yeah. Well, no, he was like, went out for lunch and was like, called me. He's like, have you seen my car? I'm like, of course I've seen your car. He's like, I can't find it anywhere, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It was, but
man. What advice for any child or anybody kind of growing up in a similar aspect, what advice would you give to them as far as the adjustments that you had to make from your real brother, living with him, to step siblings?
I don't really know if I have any specific advice, I would say, honestly, the way that I rolled was, you just roll with the punches, like how it goes, and you have to be willing to make adjustments. And like, for example, one of my oldest stepbrothers, his name's Jared. He's special needs. He's has autism and he's developmentally disabled. So he's mentally 5 years old. He's the oldest of all of us, but understanding, that was an adjustment where it's like, being as loud in the house, like running around, trip, like there's specific things that really could become a stressor, and becoming aware of that. But I think that's one of those things that as I adjusted my life to it, it opened up my ability to communicate and understand with everyone, where you're like, okay, like I might like feel some similarities here, and I know how to handle this and communicate with it, like communicate with the situation or help somebody else understand what the situation is.
So going into that journey of being with your brothers and having all the pranks, wars going on, when you made the adjustments after all that, at what point did you kind of start making a decision about college and what you wanted to do? Where did that come from as far as what you wanted to do? And
so a big part of that was my first job was at a comedy club in Denver called Comedy Works. Yeah, and I started.
Did you see anybody famous? Anybody?
Oh, plenty of people famous. Yeah, all the time.
Any names like?
The Wayans brothers.
Oh, the Wayans brothers.
Yep, and Steve-O. I mean, George Lopez. I mean, pretty much everyone goes to Comedy Works, so everyone stops there.
Comedy Works. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was a great place. That was my first job. The lady who owned it used to babysit my dad, and we had all gotten together for some, like, I can't remember if it was some sort of get together, and she was saying that she needed people to work, and I had just turned 15 or 16 when you're able to start working, and so I immediately jumped at the opportunity. And because I've always loved working. It's always been the basis of what I was raised on, is like, you work hard, it works out. You have to put all the effort in. If you don't do it right the first time, when are you going to come back and do it right the second? You got to do it. So started working there, and I really admired her. She started as a server at Comedy Works when she was in college, and she ended up purchasing the business when it was kind of going under. And started working for her, built a really nice relationship with her to where I was able to start working in the box office and became her personal assistant. And I realized there was an entire business behind what was going on. My 15-year-old brain hadn't conceptualized that. And I was like, wow, this is something that I really want to do. And I was much more interested in the sports side. I've always loved sports. Football was my favorite.
Any favorite teams?
Broncos.
Oh,
Absolutely Broncos. I'm a product of the 1998 Super Bowl. We could argue John Elway's my dad, but love the Broncos, diehard Broncos fan. But it's like, this seems really interesting, and started figuring out, what do you go to school for to do this? And found the sport entertainment program at USC. I absolutely have the eldest daughter psyche, always taking care of people, traveling back and forth with my brother. Like, my little brother, I mean, he was very much like my kid. I was always like hauling him around, taking him to doctor's appointments, like helping fix, his emotional wounds as things go on. Psyche, always taking care of people, traveling back and forth with my brother. Like, my little brother, I mean, he was very much like my kid. I was always like hauling him around, taking him to doctor's appointments, like helping fix, his emotional wounds as things go on. And
that's Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor.
That's Trevor.
My
that's
buddy.
The one you tried to get on me about one time. You said, you remind me of it. I'm a much more handsome version than Trevor. You compare me to Trevor. I'm more
Trevor's my brother, so that's pretty much the only option, right? But yeah, so I pretty much had just gotten to this point where I was like, I am done taking care of like everybody around me, and I really want to focus on myself. And I was bound and determined to go out of state for college. It didn't matter how. And when I found out that USC had this program, came down and visited, wanted to go to an SEC school, wanted to be a part of the big college.
Yeah.
Game days, really wanted to get into the sports industry, and this was the #1 program. So was like, that's where I'm going. Like, I'm going to do it no matter how I need to.
So was it a SEC network or was it USC strictly?
It was USC strictly has the best sport and entertainment program.
Oh, wow.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm getting into that, and I'm going to make sure that I make my mark. And yeah, so that's where I went. It was actually cheaper for me to go to USC out of state than it was for me to go to CU Boulder in state.
Wow.
Yes. So
that's usually the opposite.
I know. It was, I mean, Colorado had gotten so expensive. That was another big part of leaving was I grew up in Colorado, and we always were camping. I grew up dirt bike riding and like just outdoor camping, like fishing.
Snowboarder or skier?
Neither. I've done both. I'm not good at them at all. Like, no.
Grew up, you know, what?
Yeah, no, but we were, I mean, that was kind of our sports season. So I did pretty much every sport all the way up until high school. And then high school, I just danced. But my brother played basketball and football. So those were his, the winter was his, like,
hopping dancing, or
I did pom, so it was kind of like a little bit of cheerleading, like very hard clean dancing versus more stylistic. So
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But wasn't super great at that, but definitely went through all 4 years for it. And yeah, I don't know. It was but so neither snowboard or skiing.
Wow,
but
that's crazy.
So but we did
kind of boxed everybody in at that Denver life as skiers or snowboarders.
Yeah, it never was really the thing for my family or anything like that. But grew up doing all of that, and I remember like not having traffic and it not like you could go into the National Forest and you wouldn't find other people. And now there's so many people there that you know, it's really hard to enjoy it because you're stuck in traffic the whole time. So I wanted to go somewhere new, and I'm really thankful I came to South Carolina because it changed my life.
That changed your life. That is great. So. That is very interesting. Interesting growing up childhood. I mean, I know most people could say it's normal in many different ways, but growing up in a city like that with opportunities, growing up with the background that you have with your parents, the involvement that you all had in outdoor stuff, hearing you dancing, it's starting to build up. And I can just see this picture of the woman that I've got to meet and be a part of as far as an employee. So it's starting to shape with a lot more understanding of, I see where this is coming from. That ruggedness, that hard nose. I'm curious at some point, though, when we get into that, like, how does that affect you as a woman with the supposedly feminine part? But we'll get into that as we get in that, because a lot of hard nose, man, a lot of rough edges. That's it's tough skin for that stuff. I mean, I used to ride dirt bikes and go-karts and four-wheelers down in the country with my dad's side of the family. They were very country oriented, very family oriented. Family reunions, structured, going with my grandparents. There was no sleeping past 7 o'clock in the morning in the summer. It didn't matter when I came. It never slept past 7. Had to eat breakfast, right? Granddad was already up, had already probably did 20 things by the time 7 o'clock came. Mm-hmm. So I kind of can relate with that family oriented vibe, that ruggedness. And I think that's kind of where the hard work ethic that I get, or the willingness to work, comes apart because of my granddad and that side of the family. My mom was a very strong person, got up every day, worked, all that stuff too. But with them, it was like no days off. It was no days off. So, man, that's powerful to kind of hear, you know. A lot of women don't want to go through that.
No, but I don't know. I've always been tough. Like, always been tough. That's something that, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you see me, well, you didn't see me take a punch to the face, but you know I have, and I'll eat it. Like, I mean, that's what, you know, it just, you got to stick with it. And like, not that showing emotion or like being hurt is a weakness by any means, but it's also like, you know, that's not a defining moment. And if, you know, you can hunker down and get through, like, you only come out stronger. So yeah, getting hurt or whatever, I mean, that's never been something I'm afraid of. It's, you know, It all heals.
It heals. It
It all
heals.
heals.
It heals. It's dope that you talk about that as we get ready to that transition to your college life and transferring, but going back to even speaking on emotions. And we're living in a society where a lot of emotion conversation are being talked about. There's a lot of people that's lack emotional intelligence or the awareness of emotions.
You know, I'll say that it was probably until I turned like 20. I think 20 was the first time that I ended up going to therapy. And
Wow.
I used to bottle it all down. It used to be like, no need to feel it, push through. You got to keep moving forward. Look where you want to go. Whatever's behind you is behind you. Like, it's a new day. And once I actually went to therapy and went through and actually learned that, in order for you to heal, you have to actually feel it. You have to go through it and let it heal. And it can be really hard because I saw a video the other day that explains it perfectly. It's if your cup is full of all this shit, like if you just had a bunch of trash and ping pong balls sitting in a cup, and you are pouring like pure water into it to try to heal and get all of this shit out. As you pour it in, all of that shit comes up.
Yeah.
And it starts to overflow, and it feels very overwhelming. And it can be really hard where you're like, no, I'm done. I'm going to stop. Like, I don't need to do that anymore. But in order to actually get through and understand and process the emotion, you have to let it come out. And it also gave me a lot of insight and ability to kind of identify other people's emotions and how they might not be able to recognize it at the moment, but it allows you to kind of navigate to where instead of having these really aggressive conversations where it's like, you did this, really kind of coming from yourself and being like, I would have handled it like this or whatnot, or this is how I feel about it, or, really taking those I statements instead of you statements is a really big thing.
I learned that one time when I went to therapy. They say focus on not saying the you statement. They call it a emotional infinity loop. And they say it's a toxic infinity loop where if you keep saying you, it just loops back around. It just loops back around and you don't really get anywhere with it. Validating each other's emotions is huge to healing process. But even with you going through therapy, there's also work that you have to do when you walk out of therapy. You have to be able to take that information and go home. And as you said, process all of that. That process is usually where we don't want to go through. We want to go black and white. We just want to skip the middle part. And I'm learning even on this journey of being a podcaster and speaking to people, I've got to embrace the journey. Something that I'm learning as I read scripture a lot. We want God to be a fix all, heal all immediately, but he wants us to go through the healing process. And during that healing process, lean on him in the way of he is our comfort and our provider. That when you go through hardship, that you're not getting it or looking from it from a woman or a man or from your mom or your dad or your brothers or something, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, because all that will smother it down. Going back to even your concept about the water being poured into all the trash, what happens is if you pour water into a cup and it has all that trash and it fills up, what we don't realize is we're not full of water. We're full of trash and water. So part of us can move on being toxic, thinking that we've got some healthiness in us. And eventually it pours out into other people and it spills over. And if we don't heal, what we do is we put our hands over the cup and pour all the water out, what's left in a good relationship or good people. And now you still got all the toxic stuff in there.
Yeah.
So what you have to learn to do is when you're been in toxic relationships, been through trauma, been through all these issues, you need to surround, going back to what you said, a community of people that are different. And you spoke about this off camera about being around a lot of older people that kind of helped you. And I want to tell people that when you're going through struggles in life, that's helped me. to move forward was being around healed people, not people that relate with me in the form of we're in the same place. Oh, I just broke up with my girl. You broke up with your girl. We're friends, because that's trauma bond.
Yep.
I'm only connected to you because of the trauma that you and I shared and experienced. So when I'm around healed people, some of my conversation sounds foreign to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm listening to the healed people remove the dirt and the trash out for me. So that's tough, because sometimes they don't seem to understand my perspective, which then allows me have to open up to their perspective, because they're the healed people. They're the married people. They're the successful people. They're the people happy in their lives. So I have to make room for them to pour into me. And as they're pouring into me, along with me, hey, this is not good for me. My rage is not good for me. Cheating is not good for me. My abuse is not good for me. When I'm pain and hurt, instead of having sex with every girl that I could possibly have to stroke my ego and feel validated, let me remove dating. Let me remove alcohol for a little bit. Let me go through a cleansing spirit where I can receive all this pouring, so that it actually expedites the process. It may not happen over 1 year, 2 years, 3 months, 1 week, but it expedites the process, instead of me being a broken and unhealed individual for 5 years, 10 years, and having to still have to go through that same process at some point.
Yeah.
So, I think that's something very important that we have to kind of make ourselves aware of.
I'm a firm believer that you are an average of the 5 people closest to you.
Oh, wow.
So when you are looking around and feel like you're not where you're supposed to be, or you're not where you want to be, you need to look around at who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah.
Because that is, like you said, that's who's pouring in your cup.
Yeah.
And whatever they're pouring in is what you're putting out. So very firm believer in that.
Yeah. Had friends to be like, hey, yo, go smash a few girls, bro. After a breakup, hey, man, go party, go live your best life. But,
And those are easy answers. And that's the other thing, too, is if it's easy, it's probably not the right one.
Nope.
The right thing is really hard to do quite often.
So, man, that's dope. That's crazy. So now we're going into that transition of college and leaving Denver, leaving home, going out of state. You have to readjust.
Yep.
What is that like from the West to the Southeast? Good old Southern redneck blue belt state.
Yep. It was really quite an adjustment.
Yeah.
I mean, Colorado, pretty granola hippie in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Not anywhere near what this is down here. You talk about, recycling, and people are like, what is that? It was a really big adjustment. But I came down here, I didn't know a single person in South Carolina. I came down here, I literally had no friends. I started from scratch immediately. And I knew, I have always had this instilled work ethic on me. And I knew that when I got down here, I was here for a reason. I was here to study sport and entertainment management. I thought I wanted to be a sports agent at first, and then I wanted to be the CEO of a sports franchise. And I was like, all right, well, you got to get to work. You got to get your foot in the door. You have to, the fun part can be put aside, but your priority is working and getting things done. So when I first got down here, the first year of college, I volunteered for everything that I possibly could. And I took a class here at USC called University 101.
Okay.
I had a professor, his name was Rico Reed, and I accredit my foundation for adulthood. I mean, obviously parents and stuff, but the legibility of finances and understanding how to actually take care of yourself, I absolutely attribute it to him. He had us do a project where we had to plan our lives 5 to 7 years in the future. So, pretty much graduation or a couple years after, and what was it going to look like? And it had to be very realistic. And gave the foundation for this is how you pay loans off. This is how you literally budget yourself. This is how you this is how you become an adult. This is how you do adult things. Yeah. And that's something that's absolutely missing in the education system, which is a big reason why I love substitute teaching, because I can just sprinkle my little whatever I need to them. But
he literally laid the foundation for that and gave me an idea where I was like, okay, when I graduate college, I'll be making $27,000 a year because I was like, realistically, I thought I was going to be an entry level position, and like, where was I going to live? You're looking at income taxes and, why are you picking this state to live in or this company to work for or whatnot. So that was kind of the start of it. And then once I got that, started interning out the wazoo, like literally just every opportunity that I could get. Was the first female manager for USC baseball, took up a ton of my time. I did USC athletic marketing, USC game athletic development, which is like the Gamecock Club.
Okay.
So I started really getting my hands in all of these like business aspects of it. Was a corporate hospitality manager for the Carolina Panthers. Worked for them.
Carolina Panthers?
Yep.
Oh.
Worked for them for 2 seasons.
What was that like? Like what all entailed in these type of management? What was the perks? What was the access? What was the responsibility?
So, when I was interning, you're doing all the grunt work. You're doing you're the ones dressing up in the costumes, running the races at the games, like during those little promos. You're the ones that are scanning tickets. And, I was in the, like, what does it take to actually make this happen? You're doing all the little things. You're not part of the planning. You're part of the execution. So, I learned a ton of things from that, and being able to touch everything from marketing operations to the business side of it. I was really getting like the full scope of everything. For the Carolina Panthers, I started off like, you're doing the grunt work. You're setting up all of the tents and putting all the tables, because it was the tailgate before. It was all these...
Are you being paid for this?
Yeah. So I was being paid with the Panthers. The internships, I was not paid at all. But with the Panthers, it was like, I don't even remember what I made, probably minimum wage or something when I first started. And then after that first year, they called me in for a meeting and they were like, we'd like you to run this. So during the school year, I would go up, I think it was like 2 days a week. I'd go up on Wednesdays and Fridays on home games, because those were the only times I needed to be there, was for home games, because it was corporate companies that would rent, areas outside of Bank of America Stadium. And they'd have these big tents, and I'm leading a team that is bringing in all the furniture, setting up the decorations, checking in with all the caterers and alcohol caterers, and making sure that everything is correct. Interacting, like, that's when I really started to kind of learn how to manage, because I had a team that was with me, and I had to go around and just talk to these big corporate executives and, everyone, to make sure that they were doing well. And it was, a good teaching moment, because I dressed up, older than I was, I'm like 20 years old, but I'm
trying to look the part.
Looking the part. Like, that's what I wanted to do. Like,
you didn't come in with a trash bag.
No, didn't come in with a trash bag. But also with that too, I'm walking around wearing heels, but you'll absolutely catch me carrying the heaviest thing possible to help get this done. And, it didn't matter what, I was wearing or how I was doing anything, it just has to be done. And that was a big part of my management style, is that it's sometimes, it might be someone's job and that might be their responsibility, but there's no reason why you should be able to do everything that all your employees do. And you might not be the best at it, but you should be able to step in and do it and help where help is needed.
So we're talking about you in the corporate world and the transition and all these opportunities that you had. It's great to notice that it's not always about the money per se, especially at the early stages of your life. It's about more so the experience that can help build you up. And we live in a society where a lot of people don't want to do jobs because of the income, and don't realize that they can make the most of that scenario. And later that experience will help them get to the income that they want. Would you agree? Or
I absolutely agree. I mean, I worked for free for the first 2 years of college, for sure, and worked for free jobs all the way through my senior year. And you might not be making money, but you're getting experience, and your ability to be hands-on and apply the things that you're actually learning in a classroom is invaluable. And doing the things that everyone else doesn't want to do, it absolutely sets you apart when you're the one who, I don't care that I'm not being paid. I don't care that where I'm making minimum wage or whatever it is. You just have to fight through it, because it's the experience that you're going for. And that's what sets you apart later, is that you did it and that you know how to do it. And the money, it comes. I'm a firm believer in karma. I'm a believer in tip karma. I'm a believer in all of that. And so, you know, put in the work and it happens. And
It will. I agree with you. How much some people don't get the privileges or the opportunities because of, maybe we can say a little bit of, you have beauty, a privilege of beauty, right? Living in a world, some men will hire you just because of your beauty. Some women may not hire you because they may see you as a threat just as of your beauty. Some of that is racial, right? Unfortunately, we live in a society like that. I don't think it should determine us, but we do live in that reality that because you may be white, you do have a little white privilege that may separate. And I know you personally, that you're not a firm believer of that, but I also know that, like you said, I will use my strengths to get to where I want to go, because I also know that you want to do that with the opportunity of saying, if I can use this to my strengths, use these to my benefits, then it gives me the power and the influence to do the right things and to help other people that don't get the same privileges.
Exactly. It's using it, you know, it's all about your competitive advantage and understanding that. You know, I know that being a beautiful young woman, like when I go into a negotiation or a business meeting or something, and especially when I'm surrounded by men, it's, you know, there's always the like pretty dumb, right? Like the pretty dumb girl, like everybody kind of views it as that. And honestly, my mom taught me so much about that, where it's like your biggest advantage is them thinking you're an idiot. And I always tell people my favorite game to play is dumb. I love playing dumb because at the end you find out who is playing and who is just dumb. And
That's good.
Yeah, people forget about that. Like, you know, I took a women's and gender studies class in college, and my teacher was so anti, like, you know, I don't want to say women feeling beautiful. It's just so, like, you know, not meeting the norms or whatnot. And for me, it's like, well, everyone should have that choice to decide what it is. And I do take pride in my appearance because, I mean, that's when, you know, that's your first impression. That's before you even open your mouth. That's what people take in. And why
Dion said, what Dion said? He said, you dress good, you feel good, you perform good.
Yeah, you do. And that, I mean, I am a firm believer of that. Like, you know, I'll dress for the job that I want. And that's what I did. Like, even when I was interning at athletic development and stuff, I mean, I showed up in like business professional every day. I was in heels. I was just an intern. I was sitting at the front desk or in the office somewhere, but like I was going to be out dressing everybody that was there because I wanted to be the boss. I wanted to dress like the boss because that's what I wanted to be. So
you got to be the part. You got to be the part so you can become the part.
Yep. And I've had so many people tease me about like dressing up or wearing heels and stuff inside these dive bars. And for me, it's like, but you know, this is what I want. This is who I am. And you know, sometimes like the fake it till you make it, the imposter syndrome, like the number of times that I've struggled with where I'm like, you know, did I really earn this? You know, am I really doing this? Is this, you know, is it really my brain that's working here? Or am I taking, you know, just everyone else's words? And that's something I really had to fight with, is like believing that it is me that's there and, you know, putting in the work. And
self-confidence can come in many different ways. And sometimes our self-confidence can be shattered or cracked when we face adversity. And it takes a real strong mind, such as yourself, to understand that and not to allow those crack. I think a lot of your upbringing helped that, right? Learning those healing, going through that early. And it sucks that we don't get that now. I think we coddle a lot of individuals, especially in the youth. We don't realize. So now when they step into the real world, I know some people that graduated last year and life has smacked them in the face. Like it smacked them in the face. That privilege that you had, the easygoing fluidity of structure of college and things of that. And I said that in another podcast about having boundaries and structure is actually very needed in our society. As much as we all want to be free and do what I want, my body, my choice, my life, this is me, this and that, thinking about ourselves. Remember what I said earlier, when we live in the end times, we become self-centered. And you've already alluded that it takes a village or community to raise an individual. And I've seen that a lot of successful people had a village, had a community, had support system that helped strengthen them internally to move forward, to know that there's a foundation within yourself that you're good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That helps us for the world, right? That because the world is trying to chip at us, all of us, me, you, my camera crew, every one of us go through our own individual circumstances where the world is trying to chip away from us because we're in a competitive world. And as you stated earlier, in the world of competing and with your competitive drive, I'm going to take any advantages that I get.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's networking, resourcing, being able to talk to people, having a personality.
Mm-hmm.
These are my advantages. I know that I have to hold the bar higher, maybe because I am Black, maybe because I made poor choices, but I'm not going to let those things define me because I'm a persevere, right? The Bible says a righteous man falls 7 times and gets back up. I believe that I want to build a better relationship with God in a way that I can always get back up, and he's been my support system. So I want to attribute, the strength and your mental fortitude and the power of you being a woman in this society. Like, yo, that's dope. Like, I want to give you your kudos for that.
Mm-hmm.
And no shade or not for you using any advantages that you got to get to where you're going. Just stay right and good and hard. That's all that matters.
You got to stick to like your firm, like core values on what you believe. And I think going with all of that, I don't know, I'm trying to think here. I don't know. I think life, you start learning in school. That is the absolute foundation. And I was so blessed with so many amazing teachers. I loved school. I loved the classroom. I loved the structure of it. I don't think the education system is anything fantastic right now, but I do think that teachers are such an important part, and life teaches you lessons for the entirety that you're here. And the quicker that you learn to be a learner and to adjust and realize that it's not a memorization game, it's your ability to think and work through something, because it's not a template, it's not like, oh, Warren Buffett did this, so these are the things that I need to do, or I did this, and so you guys need to do that to be successful. There's no template for how it gets done. So you just really have to stick to your guns with it, but you have to be a good learner. You have to want to learn and be good at learning. And the quicker you can figure out how you learn, the further that you go. And I absolutely believe that wholeheartedly.
I love that. So as we go into the next aspect of things, that's dope. You got to be a learner. You go into next rank, you went through all these transitions, college life. What was that like before you get ready to graduate? Did you have fun?
So I had plenty of fun in college. I absolutely did, but my schedule was full. I didn't sleep, basically. By the time that I was a junior, started my first service industry job at Village Idiot Pizza. First day was a host, met one of my best friends in the whole world, gangster Grady Howell. And he had my back since day one. And when I started doing that, my bar manager pulled me for the second to last game day of the year to TLC, where I was a shot girl.
Okay.
And that's really where my career started kind of taking off, because I got there and, like I said, I show up and I work. And that was something that really set me apart with all of my internships and everybody that I worked with. And me getting more opportunities wasn't an issue, because I had backed everything that I had showed up and said that I was going to be. And so started working at TLC, did one game as a shot girl, did really well giving out free shots. And when they were counting my money, they were like, how did you do that? So one of the bartenders called out, and I got a phone call and was like, hey, do you want to come bartend for this last game day of the year? I'd never bartended before in my life. The bartenders that were there, Vinny, said, Randall, they all took me under the wing, and they were like, all right, here's what you do. If you have questions, ask me. Don't fuck up the money. Like, that was the one rule, right? So showed up, worked my ass off, got equal cuts with everyone because I never left the bar. I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
Oh, man.
And then asked the owner if I could come back in January or whatever, because they were obviously going into the slow part, and asked if I could come in and bartend. And started bartending happy hour. Well, this was just, I mean, TLC was just a dive bar, and there wasn't really rhyme or reason as to what was going on or why they were doing the things that they did. And I'm getting this entire education in business, and I'm pulling all of these other outside influence experiences that I'm like, well, I can apply that here. Oh, I can apply that here.
Yeah.
Well, the weird part was that, you know, I was brand new. Nobody knew who I was. And I'm just this little blonde girl that's walking around being like, we should do this. We should do that. All of that.
That bossiness.
Yeah, that bossiness. And the owner, Justin, he was a really great mentor. He really just kind of was like, you know, he's like, all right, like, go. Like, all right, let's do it. And he really trusted me with that entire process.
Wow.
And
had to execute.
I mean, yeah, that business from the year prior, sales had increased by $1 million.
Wow.
And this was during COVID. And that's when I was like, wow, I might be kind of good at this. And, you know, it was a struggle being so young and everyone just being like, who is this bitch? Like, who is she? Like, why does she think she can be whatever? But at the same time, all I was doing was taking it, asking everybody their advice, their input, their opinions, and I was gathering as much as I could, as much information I could, so you can make a decision. Because the one mistake that people make is not making a decision. Because if you don't make it, it just happens, and you have to make a decision. And not every decision that you make will feel like, you know, you might think later that was the wrong decision, but with the information you had at the time, it was the best one, and you can't beat yourself up about it. But did that, was there for like a year and a half or something like that. It was, I left, I'm trying to decide if I want to say this or not. When you were speaking of like the beauty and the intimidation that can exist in like women and stuff, that definitely existed for me. And that was a big reason why I had to exit, was because,
the beauty, living in that society. And
there was a specific individual who thought that I was not, that I had ulterior motives or something. Now, for me, like I said, I am very blessed with the fact that I don't have daddy issues. I've got lots of father figures in my life to where that's not something that was a thing. But it came down to a decision of like respecting myself and knowing who I was and not putting myself in the situation to feel like I have to defend something that's not true. And that was a really big lesson. And I also learned a lot about my value in it, and how to value myself and how to stick up for myself.
And sometimes it's not the easy decision. We talked about easy.
Not at all.
Sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it may not even get the opportunity to really explain it completely for them to understand it. They may never understand it until time later, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's also not your job to have somebody like completely understand it. You know, I really do believe I have a very strong foundation of my sense of self. And that was where, for me, it was like, you know, I'm not going to jeopardize or anything like that for who I am. So did that. And then, during that time,
integrity, man, it's valuable. I cut that as very valuable to have strong character about yourself. Sometimes we're influenced to make decisions that we know are not best because we don't have the mental fortitude, the integrity, the foundation of knowing yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's very huge of you to have that within yourself, especially, like I said, being a boss chick, a world full of men, beautiful.
Yeah.
Look, I know I've got my issues, racial barriers and poor choices, but you have them too. So we equally have individual issues that we've got to go to our uphill battle on our journey. So I just want to, hey man, hey, big kudos to you, yo.
Thanks.
Big kudos.
But yeah, I don't know. So then, with that, it was big, like, I mean, that's the other thing too, is that it can be really fearful to change. And I love change. I am a creature of change. I don't like when anything stays the same.
Yeah, me either.
I need things to change because I feel like, if you're not making the change, something else is going to, right?
Yep.
And sometimes the change is completely out of your control. But, um, you know, that decision was a big change for me because that was my home and that was this entire, family or sense of self life that I had built there. And when I left, I was a little afraid. And that was when I decided to go to law school, which I was studying to get into law school in the office in a bar. That's the other thing too. When I was in college, I took 8 a.m.s every single day. I sat in the front row of every single one of my classes. My professors were going to know who I was. And I would do 8 a.m.s. I would be done at like 11. I'd run to TLC. I would do all the orders or whatever I needed to do. I'd leave. I'd go to an internship till 6. I'd go right back to TLC. I'd bartend throughout the entire night. Wouldn't get home until like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, take a quick nap, and I'd go right back to school.
Yeah.
And it was a consistent repeat, like rinse and repeat. That's what my life was. I still found the balance of like having fun. It was always so cool to have your friends come out to the bar and be able to get them in line or whatever, and building all these relationships in the service industry, which then brought me over to group therapy where I was bartending. And I actually, during my senior year, I had to quit group because one of my professors, I said, can I either access the assignments 4 days early or can I turn them in 2 days late? This is my schedule. This is what I'm doing this year. And I really appreciate that. And he said, sounds like you need to drop a job or drop my class. And I knew, I was like, well, got to get through the degree, whatever. But took like a specific interest in law when it came to just being able to make those changes and understand how changes are implemented and how the legal system works, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. I mean, that's what governs us. So I had a really strong interest in that. So started studying for law school, was just doing law school, and group therapy brought me back as a bartender. So I was bartending and doing group, and I was like, oh, this just isn't enough. From having a completely full schedule, I was like, I need more. So
is that what led to the business owner?
So that's when I started Whiskey Business, because I was like, all right, I'm going to start.
What is Whiskey Business?
So Whiskey Business is a consulting and alcohol catering company.
Okay.
So doing offsite events, pulling like temporary beer licenses for it. And then, like I said, I was getting bored. So that's when I started running Beer Garden and got there, and I had stopped bartending at group, I think, because then it was like law school.
Talking about your life and the perks of having group therapy or having that manager aspect, but you needed more. Whiskey Business. What was the other?
Yeah, so Whiskey Business was consulting for Republic Beer Garden and group therapy. It was kind of like an unheard thing to have a manager running 2 different places under different owners. And I really used my understanding of the law to be able to do that and kind of introduce that concept of being able to do that. And I was really lucky that everybody was on board and they were down. They saw the value in my presence being there and not having to be, have like a set schedule. Like they trusted me to be able to do what I do best and kind of create it how I needed to be able to do it. Which was really, really cool and super neat, and, just continued to learn and just continued to learn.
With the learning, so that led to you being able to be owners into that transition with the other 2 bars, CB18 and Breakers Live here that we're at. Thanks for allowing us to use this facility.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's dope. So how did that come into the fold as a business as you grow into that boss, like being able to be at the table with the bosses and them sitting down? Like, what was that experience like as far as them coming and giving you that offer and opportunity to be able to be part owner in several different bars?
Yeah. So basically, I just wasn't afraid to ask. I wasn't afraid to want to be there. I actually had Ray Tanner, the athletic director at USC, he was my mentor my senior year.
wow.
And the only reason that happened is because I had balls to ask, where I
Yeah.
was like, hey, I hear that you mentor student athletes. Like, I was in baseball manager, which puts me in the student athlete,
Yep.
you know, whatever, and want to learn. I
That
want
hard work.
yeah,
that
I want to
chipping
be
at
in
the-
there. So
Scanning them tickets.
exactly.
Run around like the mascot.
So when I
That free work.
yeah,
There it
so
goes.
exactly. So then when I was contracted at group, I told them I only want to be here for 1 year. I want to own my own place. And when that 1 year mark came up, these two places came for sale, and I was like, I want to buy it. And the owners at group were like, yeah, like, let's do it. Let's get in there. So we all went in, and that's how these places were born.
Can I ask quickly, I don't know, how did you want to buy it for anybody's like starting off, jumping into business like that? What were some of the steps? You don't have to go into detail, but as far as accumulating that equity to kind of be involved in that, like, was that did you have a lot of support to kind of help you with that? Did that a lot of your own?
It's crazy. So I put every cent I had into purchasing these businesses.
And you've been stacking. I remember
And
we were trying to talk. You had been
exactly.
stacking
So
from these
I
jobs.
have been,
So I
yeah.
want to allude to that. Like we didn't talk about that, but you had been saving during your college years.
Mhm.
You know, you may have not gotten the car you wanted or the clothes you wanted, but you stayed focused on the vision.
Yep.
And
what it was, and understanding that, you know, you have to save your money. And that University 101 class, that is absolutely what taught me how to save it. And yeah, I literally just stacked bread being a bartender, you walk out with cash every single night. So I just had this one place in my house that I literally just kept throwing cash into. And it was actually crazy because we had an extra expense that had popped up, and my best friend actually loaned me the remaining, I think it ended up being like $5,000 the day of closing.
Wow.
And I called her and was like, dude, I don't know what to do. Literally have no more money. I need help. And she's absolutely been my number one supporter. She absolutely checks me every single day. Every single day. But she, you know, I had to take the risk and be willing to be broke and just go with it. And the risk paid off. And it was the same way with my house. Like, I dumped all of my money into the down payment and doing research, and it all comes from like relationships and the relationships I built. Like the house that I bought, I didn't need a realtor or anything like that because I made a relationship with my landlord. I rented the house before and was like, hey, you know, can we use the rent that I've paid this whole time as a rent to own? And, you know, he was graceful enough for it. And I really think that showing the vulnerability of like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Hey, I need help, or can you teach me about this? Like, people really enjoy that, and they're much more open to sharing that with you rather than you being like, oh no, I got it, I can figure it out. So it was everybody along the way that was willing to teach me how to do it. And there were plenty of times where I've been like, what the fuck am I doing? I have no idea what's going on. I feel like the most clueless person in the world, but you just have to do it, you know, and mistakes are just learning opportunities along the way. I've had countless failures and countless things that have gone wrong, and I thought that it could be the end of the world, or this is the end of whatever, my career or whatever. And it's just not. It's just a step along the way, and you learn and you pivot and you make adjustments. And yeah.
That's dope. I've got a mantra that I've said to myself. I'm gonna get to that point where I'm gonna get sponsored, but I do what I do because I just do it. So those two slogans are from Mountain Dew and Nike. I do what I do because I just do it.
Yep.
So that's huge. So you've gotten all this going on. You broke the bank. You're a business owner, a homeowner. So you've graduated at this point now?
Yep. I have 2 degrees.
2 degrees.
Yep.
And that was a journey, man. That is a testament to you, who you are now. So with all that being done, what's the journey? What's the vision moving forward with all that? How much is that University 101 playing a factor into the next few
Yeah.
years of your life? What do you want to become?
What I want to become is I want to continue to kind of have these, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Passive income. Okay. So one, that is a really big thing. I want to continue to build businesses and help either teach or bring people in that can teach me and continue to help grow these businesses, start new businesses, so that I can continue to do what I really care about most, which is people and being able to help with. That's the biggest part about substitute teaching. Like, those are the little minds, like that is the future right in front of you. And helping curate them and help them learning how to think and problem solve is so important. And so right now it's just doing that. And I love community events. I think, third places, I think just continuing to make where we live an enjoyable place with things to go do that aren't expensive, and like just community events and stuff like that. Like, I just want to continue to be involved and it be one of those things where, like it doesn't matter what money I'm making doing the thing that I love, because I was able to take care of all these other things that I also love and really care about, but can sustain themselves, and where like I can continue to focus on my personal growth and other aspects of my life, like teaching. Like, I would love to fix the education system. Like, I will not bring a kid into this world until I believe that the education is like the education system is ready to rock and roll, where it's like I could drop that kid off anywhere and I believe that you will be,
teaching my kids,
being like learning, not memorizing, not whatever, So, I would say that, like, I just want to continue to do that and get involved, and I want to touch, I want to be able to be a part of everyone's life. And
that's a great, it's a great goal. I've come to learn that it allows us to continue to grow and to learn, as you said earlier, when you stop living a life outside of yourself, when you live your life out only for yourself, it shows. You may not verbalize it. Sometimes you may not tell people, but it shows and it reflects in many different areas. It reflects in how you treat people. It reflects on the relationships you have and don't have. It reflects on the stability of your relationships and what you have and don't have. It's like some people can stay in survival mode, and because they've got a house and they've got a job and they got bills paid and maybe they got their kids taken care of. But I remember my pastor asking, what is your identity after that? What are you going to do?
Yep.
And a lot of people get lost when they're no longer a mother or a father or a business owner. If you don't have those core values that you spoke about earlier about family and self-integrity and knowing your value and standing up for yourself and walking away when it's not easy and making the hard decisions in life, then you'll crumble. You'll crumble. You'll lose yourself. You'll crumble. And sometimes you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And sometimes losing yourself can benefit you if you have the groundwork and the structure and the friends and the family that's going to help remold you and shape you and remind you. As you said, you have a friend that's always a reminder. I have a group of people that always hold me accountable.
Yep.
Always reminding me. And you need that when you're trying to, as you said, with therapy, mask all that in as a pressure. Man, it'll strain you. You'll do damage to yourself. All those toxic things in the cup starts pouring back out because it never really goes away. So if you don't find groundwork within yourself and taking a moment, I believe all of us at some point needs to isolate ourselves at some point. We're not designed to be by ourselves, but sometimes you have to isolate yourself from a world.
Yep.
You have to have moments in your life where you're away from what the norm is, what you're familiar with, what you're comfortable with, to regain a new perspective. You said earlier off camera that one of your gifts or strengths is empathizing, but you also stated removing myself from things sometimes to gain different perspective. It's hard to value the picture when you're in it.
Yep.
A painter who paints the picture can't even value it the way that he wants or she wants until other people see it. Sometimes you're not your best work. It's to everybody else an amazing project.
Yeah.
And you have to make those risks. You have to make those choices. And so I think that's like big ups to you and everything that you've got going in future. You're going to be Fortune 500.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll
You
see.
know, could be on the list, but
Could be on the list.
could be on the list.
Oh man, prank your way up there. Prank war up there.
Yeah, right.
So that was great, man. That was dope, man. It was a pleasure having you on here today. Everything that you talked about, I hope it helps some women out there, some individuals about the road that you have to take. What is learned is obviously structure is a big part of your upbringing. Knowing yourself, staying committed to your focus and the vision and the plan that you have, being willing to learn, being able to take on opportunities. All these things are key tools to the success that you've accumulated over yourself. And I think is also very valuable to many people in the world, that some of these things are not always materialistic. It's internal. And sometimes you have to find the value in the internal and things that may not show the dividend and the value in cash flow, but you are the cash flow. You are the source. So whether you continue your endeavors here or go back to Denver and build things, the future is bright for you. Everything has already been laid out. This is just another journey to your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask, you said, I don't know if I really asked it, but what do you think your purpose on life is to do? Your purpose overall, everything. And what is your purpose?
My purpose, I think my purpose is to.
And it's early. So.
Yeah, it's early. Yeah. It's definitely early, but I honestly think my purpose is to bring people together, is to be able to like help unite and be that kind of voice of reason, or the ability to be like, listen, I get it. Like, you know, y'all may never be friends, you know, but the like bringing it, like highlighting mutual respect or whatever it is, you know, definitely that. It definitely has to do with people. It definitely like something of that sort. You know, I know how much I love people, and I like just adore the human experience and how people act. And like, this has been the best part about that industry, has been watching people, especially, you know, people come out here and it's the best part of their weeks. And it's so much fun being able to curate that part, but it's even more fun, like just seeing, you know, just the way that people act. And you can see the best and the worst of people in this industry for sure. But it's amazing to see, you know, it's just, it's funny and it's enjoyable, and it really does like make my heart happy to, you know, just be a part of it.
Any person who's ever been successful has always talked about doing it. Everything that anybody, whether it's makeup products, entertaining people in wrestling, creating workout plans, it's always for people. It's always for people. It's always about making other people better. So it goes back, like I said, I think all of us, and I know that's ultimately God's will for every person in life. Everybody has a unique design and gifts, talents that was created for them to ultimately do. How do we bring people together? And on a deeper, when you get to that level, it's eventually, how do you bring people closer to God? And how do you save lives? How do you save soul? But one of the things biggest thing that Jesus was talking about was showing his characteristics to deal with all kinds of people. And ultimately, he catered to everybody. He didn't rebuke the Gentiles, which were people that didn't believe in him. He didn't look at the Jews or the Greeks or the Hebrews any better. He didn't disqualify. He didn't distinguish himself as different. He blended in with everybody. But the depths of the thing that I admire most about Jesus, or Michael Jordan, or Captain America, these are people that I admire, Martin Luther King, that they knew themselves. They knew who they are and who they were and who they wanted to become, and they lived it out every day. Bad choices, good choices, being looked at as a bad person, it didn't matter. They knew who they needed to be, and it all came full picture. And The band Perry says, it's funny how when you're dead, people start listening. Sometimes we don't even get to see the legacy we leave until we're gone. Sometimes we don't even realize the impact that we have on people until we're gone. And people don't even realize the impact that we had in their lives until we're gone. So people, if you do right by people and you empathize and you have a grit, moral system and integrity about yourself, I really have seen a lot of people who are now no longer with us. Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, Martin Luther King, people who all at some point was ridiculed about decisions, choices that they made. Kobe with the cheating, Michael's scandal supposedly. They left such a great impact on the world that nobody even really remembers them.
Everyone makes mistakes, and that's the other thing too. You know, it's your first time. Odds are here. It's your parents' first time here. Like, it's all about the ability to like forgive. And I'm such a firm believer of, you know, leaving something better than you found it. Like you said, like making it better. Like the next person, like, you know, I want the next person who is in my position to be paid more, to have more knowledge. Like, you have to be able to share. I think knowledge is so powerful, and that was another thing with the legal system, was like sharing it, like letting people know, like, hey, this is what's going on. And that's also a big negotiation style that I have, is I'm going to share all of my information. I'm laying my cards out because, one, that builds trust. And then two, sometimes you might be holding on to this little bit of information thinking that it's your strength, but that's actually the one thing they were missing to be able to offer a solution. And that's a huge thing too. Like,
That's
you know,
huge.
you got to be able to do that. But
Man, I'm glad to know that you're not self-centered. At times we have to be, but overall your heart's in the right place. And once again, this was a pleasure. And I thank you for being on here.
Thanks for having me.
And having a bowl. If you really enjoyed that episode, please like and subscribe. Make sure you watch it. Once again, this was a journey about an individual that told us about the things that she became in order to become the boss woman that she is today. Hopefully you learn from who she was to who she is now, and that who she is to become. If you liked it, once again, like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support and get ready for the season to come. Thank you for all being on this journey as I grow into my podcasting career, and let's go get it. All right.